Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Macabre Matinee with Craig and Sean. As per usual, I am Craig Lance,
And I'm Sean, bearded Kappa Litton.
and this is that time of the show when we give you our spoiler warning and tell you if you don't want to be spoiled on Fear Street Part 3, 1666. Now's your chance to pause this episode, go watch the movie, and come back and finish listening to what us knuckleheads have to say about it.
You have been warned.
You have been warned. As you should be watching any horror movie. So, just like the other two, this was released this year on Netflix. This year being 2021, in case you're listening in the future or the past.
Right?
This was adapted from the R.L. Stine Fear Street books by Phil Graziadia.
Sure.
Yeah, Lee Janiak and Kate Treft. Also directed by Lee Janiak. It features Kiana Madeira returning as Dina and playing a version of Sarah Fear. Benjamin Flores returns as Josh and plays Sarah Fear's brother Henry as well. And Sadie Sink returns as Ziggy and plays Constance, along with pretty much everybody that's been in all of the other movies now make a return, whether they were dead or alive in the other movies.
Right.
Because this movie picks up right where part two ended. Remember, I told you everything was good and it was all solved and they could all go home while I lied. So when Dina, at the end of part two, buries the hand of Sarah with the body, she gets a vision and it takes her back to 1966, where she is placed into Sarah's life and experiencing Sarah's life, seeing it all through Sarah's eyes. And Sarah is a bit of an awkward teenager living with her father George and her brother Henry. And Sarah and Lizzie and Hannah, who are, people from the other movies, of course. Hannah is actually played by the same woman that played Sam. Plan a party for all the teenagers of the village. And as the teenagers head to the party, the trio of girls decide to head to this weird widow's home out in the middle of nowhere to steal some of her hallucinogenic berries. They are able to get the berries, but are caught by the widow who runs them off. Before getting ran off, Sarah sees a book, one that is very familiar to us from the second episode of this series. It's the book that they use to find their way through the tunnels. It's the witch's book. It's Sarah's book, supposedly. Anyway, Sarah sees this book in there, notes it, and they run off, and of course, it will play a part later in the movie.
Right.
So back at the party, Caleb makes a very aggressive pass towards Hannah, and I guess towards Sarah as well, who both reject his advances. They run off into the woods, and we find out that Hannah and Sarah are actually romantically involved. Back in town, as they kiss each other goodnight, they are seen by none other than Mad Thomas, the local crazy dude that spouts nothing but religious crap at everybody. The next day, Hannah's father, the pastor, begins acting strangely, and Sarah is telling her friend Solomon about her romance with Hannah when they hear a commotion. So Sarah and Solomon head to see what the commotion is about, and they find out that Pastor Miller has locked himself and most of the town's children into the church with him. Solomon and Sarah finally bust into the church, where they find the pastor has killed all the children, and Solomon is forced to kill the pastor. The town goes insane, as they were apt to do back in this time, and they blame all the evil that is happening on someone making a deal with the devil. Eventually causing the kind of forgot the word I was going to say here, but Caleb to speak out against them. against Tara and Santa, saying that they denied his advances because they were in a sinful relationship with each other,
Right.
obviously caused by the devil. Hannah is captured by the town and Sarah escapes. Sarah decides to find the widow's witch book that she saw and become a real witch. If that's what they intend to kill her for anyway, she may as well learn how to defend herself.
Right.
And when she gets to the widow's home, she finds that the book is missing and the widow is murdered. I should also note that the widow is played by the same lady that played the nurse in the second movie.
Right.
Um, since everything is kind of interconnected, we'll get to that here at the end of it. Sarah returns to the only person she believes that will help her, Solomon, her one friend in town. And as she gets there, the townsfolk show up and demand to search his house, believing that Sarah is there. Sarah escapes into the tunnels under Solomon's house, and she discovers a altar-like place with the book set in the center. Solomon, having dealt with the townfolk, now follows Sarah into the tunnels. Sarah confronts Solomon regarding the book, and he admits to having made a deal with the devil, offering Pastor Miller as an offering in exchange for power and wealth. The two fight, and Solomon cuts off her hand. She escapes to the tunnel and heads to the chapel, where she is arrested by the townsfolk. In order to save Hannah's life, Sarah says that she is the witch and she bewitched Hannah into having this an affair with her. Before she is hanged, she tells Solomon that the truth will eventually be his downfall and curses him as well as she can with that, not being an actual witch. And then we return to 1994.
Yeah.
Yeah, where Dina is now armed with the knowledge that the good family is responsible for it all because Solomon is played by the same man that plays Nick Good, the good sheriff, um, and that they have been using this book generation to generation to make a deal with the devil to continue their family history and wealth and power that they've gotten from using this book. And that's why every time they have to sacrifice somebody, you get one of these killers. And, you know, of course, it's more than just the one person. It ends up being however many people these killers kill.
Right.
So Dina and Josh return to Ziggy's house and tell her what they have learned. They realize to end it all, they have to kill Nick Good, the sheriff. They recruit the help of Martin, the mall's janitor, who Josh helped back in the first movie to get out from the sheriff's office.
Right.
They recruit him. They go to the mall. They set up a big Scooby-Doo trap for Nick and all the killers, and it works. Eventually, Dina and Nick end up back in the tunnels. Dina ends up killing Nick, and when he dies, all the killers are destroyed. The good family has been exposed, and the town finally begins to heal. Then, as you think it's all done, in the mid-credit scene, someone steals the book from the tunnels.
Yep.
Did I cover it pretty well there, Sean?
Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
with this taking place in two different timelines, I mean it's a lot to you know. Of course, we're not going to sit. We don't want to sit here for half the episode recapping the movie, or at least for the breakdown. So yeah. I think you hit all the important notes.
Yeah.
Speaking of notes, I just want to throw this out here because I am looking at my notes when I watch this, which admittedly has been quite a few weeks since we weren't able to get to it right away. Mad Thomas equals Fox News.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like they literally
Yeah.
call him Mad Thomas. They know this dude ain't right, but as soon as he starts pointing the finger at some witches, they're like, "Yeah, totally."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's credible
Yeah.
news source.
Yeah, he is a credible news source, even though he's Mad Thomas and apparently never showers, much like Fox News.
And that's as political as I'm trying to get in this episode. But I made that note, and it's like, you know what? It ain't wrong.
You are not wrong. That is a good assessment there.
Right. Well, the 1666 portion of this movie is your, and not in a negative way to call it like a classic or tropish take on the Salem witch trials. And there's many great films as well as sad truths around this era, and I think they handled it very well. As a matter of fact, my very first note on this was glad to have Dina's actress back. 'Cause, like
Yeah.
I said, we've mentioned it before in the reviews. For me, she made this movie, this trilogy, made this franchise. She's been a great lead, and now playing Sarah Fear in this, you actually have a little difference. Her literally taking up another role, but she still brought it. She was it was a she was a great lead. She was a great way to carry this story in. And I have heard talking with some people who have watched this too. Some people didn't like them reusing the cast for all this back in there, even though I don't know, it made sense
I
to me
think,
with it being their ancestors. Why not? It works. It makes
well,
sense.
people also miss the connections to all of them. So, let's talk about that for just a second.
Sure.
The fact that Solomon Good is the he becomes the sheriff. He looks just like Nick Good, who is
Right.
his ancestor. But even going beyond that, Lizzie, who's one of the girls that goes to the widow's house with them,
Right.
she's actually the one that finds the berries and distributes them. Well, she plays uh, the drug dealer friend in the first one.
Right.
So here she is. She's a drug dealer then. She's a drug dealer in the modern times. You have uh, Sarah and her brother Josh being raised by their single father when their mom died. The same exact story as Dina and Josh
Right.
um, being raised by their single father. Also dealing with alcohol problems. Um, you have Sarah in a lesbian romance with
Right.
Sam, or with Hannah, the same as Dina and Sam. Everything is interconnected. They're played by the same people. Mad Thomas is uh, Tommy
Yep.
from the second one. So they're all tied to each other for a reason.
Yeah.
So I think people miss the point on why they did that. To me, it was well done in a way to show that history tends to repeat itself, especially in this small, cursed town.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh,
And the curse. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. History repeating itself. Absolutely. But as well as these are the descendants of the people who
yeah,
through granted Puritans are always known for their rationality, uh, but through this and the curse on the town, which has always been the like one of the big factors of the story of these movies, and it just shows where it started from, and it still affected them throughout generations. So like
well, and it showed that you can never leave this town if you're from the bad side of town.
right.
You can't leave the town, which would explain why their ancestors look, you know. And again, I feel like a part of this was Dina actually plugging her friends and people she knew into these roles
Right.
more
Right.
so than because she's seeing basically a vision.
Yeah.
So you
Absolutely.
know,
And I think that for me, it drove the connection home of who was who, and
yeah.
keep it alive. Just I don't know. To me, it worked. Some people had issues with it, but maybe like you said, maybe they just didn't catch on to it, which is fine. Like I've not heard anybody really complaining about this franchise, although quite a few people felt like they didn't like this one as much as the others. I think it was a
I
solid bookend to these
I
movies.
disagree
Yeah.
with those people, not with you. So yeah, so the first movie you talked about the pacing in this one and what it that it's a little bit different, and it
Right.
is. The we talked about the first one mimics Scream, the Scream series,
Yeah.
specifically Scream One. The second one, of course, mimics the Friday the 13th series. And then this one, the first half of it really is the witch
Oh, absolutely.
movie, to the point that you have the girl that has done nothing wrong has been blamed of being the witch so often that she says, "The hell with it, I'll become the witch
Yeah.
if that's what it takes. If I'm going to be blamed for it anyways, I'll do it." Um, so it's very similar. Of course, in the second half of this, when you return back to 1994, just becomes a let's try and wrap this up and get the bad guy.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think they did that
which,
in a like which we'll get to the second half first, or here in a second. But yeah, like I think the because you brought up The Witch, a movie we are definitely going to be covering in a later episode.
Yes.
Because
Uh-huh.
I yeah we'll be talking about that. But this
Both of us
had
are
like
fans.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I would not be shocked if the director is also a fan because she was certainly channeling some elements and it's like some of the atmosphere and tension. I think from that, as opposed to like some of the, there's been a ton of like these kind of movies set in this time period, or just the trials of witches. One of my favorite classics is actually The Pit and the Pendulum. Uh, you know,
Oh yeah.
and I think they like I saw a lot of that, but again, I think the look at the town and showing like it really captured, you know, how quickly the town can go from getting fucked up on berries and applejack and dancing, which makes them sinners apparently. uh,
And this time it certainly did.
right, right. Don't fuck with them applejack and don't you be dancing, bro.
Yeah. I don't think they're talking about Apple Jacks like the cereal though.
I forget what they actually called it. I think that was like the liquor they were drinking, right? It was like
Yeah, it
some,
was the liquor. It
yeah,
was called Applejack, but it was
yeah,
the liquor they were drinking.
yeah, and that's what
'Cause
my
the
note
kids
was.
got liquored up and did what kids do, you
Right.
know.
Yeah, my note literally said Applejack plus dancing sinners. Two exclamation
Yeah.
points. Because of course the words of wisdom from Mad Thomas dictated all of this.
Well, something I didn't really put in here was there was other things happening in the town. You had all the food was going bad. You had some other things that were happening
Right,
that
right,
were, animals were dying. Sarah's pig ate all of its babies. There were some things happening in town that obviously there was some evil that had been brought into town.
oh yeah, yeah,
And
and
of
that's
course, the thing you're going to do is blame the two lesbian teenagers back in this time, right?
of course after one of them turns you down for courtship because
Exactly.
but yeah, because and that's the irony of it all. Not irony, but like a thing about it is like yeah, there actually was somebody practicing witchcraft who started that book, and Sarah, played by Dina, but Sarah had like seen that and was like like she could have told, but like she didn't do that, but then it led to her being, like you said, no choice. Well, fuck it. If they're going to call me this regardless, they're believing these people who are just out to get me, which that was a lot of the Salem witch trials. That was a lot of witch
Yep.
burnings back in the day. That's exactly what history has now looked back upon. That like, yeah, these
Yep.
were just, scorned men accusing women they didn't like, or even townsfolk that just didn't like them for whatever reason, or, intimidated by maybe they wanted to learn how to read and do math. And they had to be a witch, right? So,
Yeah, or in a lot of cases, they were widows that lived by themselves. Maybe they were back in this time, you didn't have necessarily doctors living in these towns. So you had
right,
people that, learned how to use herbs and nature to heal people. Well, then when something would go bad, they would kill them
right.
because
Yeah,
obviously, they were doing the work of the devil if your child died because they gave you, a weed instead of aspirin,
right.
you know.
Oh yeah, and of course, so I think the flashback half of the movie because like a lot of people felt that was slow, but I think that was I don't felt slow at all. It wasn't exactly a fast paced murder thing. It was like I said, going again like how you compared it with the Witch. Not a slow burn as that, but because I only had half a movie to get to it. But yeah, it wanted to show you like because we've heard of the Seraphir this entire or for two movies we've heard of the evil of Seraphir, the witch Seraphir, and how she's awful. So they had basically half, if not maybe a little more than half, because it wasn't. I don't think it ended right in the middle of the movie, but like we had to have this time to show you, hey, shit ain't what you thought, and you have to you actually cared about Seraphir by the end of the flashback.
That's right. Um, yeah, they did a very very good job of tying all these characters together, to tying the movie together, to building it into an honest trilogy
Yeah.
of of a story here. That could you watch any one of them alone? Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, but together, all three of them, it was the part that you needed. It's the explanation part. But because this is essentially a 6-hour movie, the hour and a half of explanation probably feels like a long time. But
Right.
if you were to compress that into a 2 hour movie, you're talking about 20 minutes of explanation.
True. True. Yeah.
So
So yeah, and then like I say, yeah. So I enjoyed the flashback, and again, it made you understand everything, and then brilliantly to me because because they could have like say maybe wrapped up everything and then give us the origin movie, like because a lot of like individual different like movie franchises will have just a whole movie that's the flashback, that's the origin.
that's right.
But with this, we then once we understood what happened, and you can use that information to look at 1994 again. A lot of stuff is different. You see a lot of
That's right.
people different, and that's intentional, and that's what they wanted. And I think it worked efficiently. As you put it back, we flash back or flash forward to 1994, and Scooby and the gang are getting up their traps ready for the big showdown, which again was also just very well done, very creative,
Yeah.
and armed with the new knowledge, especially about Sheriff Good. Like, yeah, it was. I think it was a very satisfying end because we had, like I said, we had the showdowns, we had the, the killers returning again, and them trying to handle them. I just thought that was like, yeah. Again, it was after a slower flashback. I thought the ending was good energy, and then it just really picked up.
Yeah, and they do the typical thing that happens in a movie, right? You get all the killers, or you get the killer locked up, and you're protected, and somehow you let them all back out again. So
Right,
um, I felt the end was pretty well paced. It was done pretty well. I mean, the star of this movie, of course, to me is the flashback.
right,
The ending of it is just a wrap up. Now that we know that you can actually, it's went from, yes, they're still supernatural, of course, because you have these killers that literally can't die
right,
until they finished whatever they've been set out to do, right, by the good family. But you now have a non supernatural way to end it. So to me, it just really worked. The whole thing worked, and then I love that the good family is just completely destroyed at the end. Um, and I love that you can see that the two towns, kind of come together and start to heal.
right,
Where it's always been this division between the two towns. There's a really sweet scene with Sam and Dina on a date having a picnic at the end of it, where they had, Sam's mom had always put her foot down before.
right.
That was kind of done and wrapped up, and you know, it just it ended well to me. I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, and with the as you mentioned when you did the synopsis of the film, it ends with the potential for more, with somebody grabbing the book, and something you and me have talked about. I'm pretty sure maybe in the previous, yeah, I think we did in the other video too. We definitely want more involving the other killers. Now,
That's right.
whether it would be someone else manipulating them, and then we kind of get their origins, but we like, what was her name, Ruby Lane? Like,
Yeah.
we'd love to see you know, what her story was before she got, the curse got to her. I want to know what the hell's up with that little kid with like a hockey stick or some shit,
Baseball bat or
or
whatever he's
what?
got.
He got
Yeah.
something, and he good at beating motherfuckers with it. And I need to know. I need to know. And the milkman, we got because we got the origin of a few. The Jason guy,
Right.
we saw in the very beginning the origin of. I think they ended up calling him like Skullface or something. The kid from the mall,
Yep.
and like
Yep.
we got some, but I want the rest. And if they keep the same crew, at least the writers, directors obviously might move on, but if they can keep this quality, I would love for this to continue to be not just a trilogy but a franchise.
I agree because you have the complete story of what happened, the beginning, the the end. You've got the story now. But there are a lot of other stories you can tell. And then, in addition to giving us all of the existing killers' backgrounds, you have somebody new with the book. You have a new
Right,
family.
right.
This ended in 1994. Well, it's 2021. So you've got time from that person getting it to now to, maybe two more, three more killers in there
Oh yeah, for sure.
that could have been released. So there's plenty of room for them to go back and um, You could just do, the origin stories of the other ones. We know that no one survives any of them except for uh, Ziggy is the
Right.
only one that survived any of them based on the past story. So, that's okay. They don't have to have happy endings.
Oh
We know
no.
what happens at the end. So,
Absolutely. And I believe, like you had mentioned before in another video, there's like 21 books in this franchise or
yeah, there's
something.
a lot of books. Yep.
Yeah, so
That
we got a lot of material they could definitely use, and I hope they do. Because,
I
like I said,
agree.
I didn't grow up with Goosebumps. I'd heard of Goosebumps. I'd never heard of Fear Street specifically. I just knew R.L. Stein, and like this came as a big surprise. And granted, I'm assuming this is a much more mature take on his book since he's typically writes for the kind of the tween audience. But at least as far as the gore content, I could be wrong. That may be why tweens loved his books back in the day when they were coming out, or probably still to this day. But
I'm pretty sure that he started this series of books under an what do you call it, an alias or a pen
okay,
name
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because he wanted to write to a more mature audience.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm pretty sure that these books were I think they've all been changed back to his name at this point. But I think originally they were um, written under a pen name. I might be wrong on that, but I believe I read that
Yeah.
somewhere. I will say that watching these movies makes me want to read the books.
Oh yeah, for sure. And speaking of the books, real quick, I another note I noted because, like, in the very first movie, we noted in the bookstore were his novels, and
Right.
in the end, they saved Dina with book armor because she did
Oh, that's right.
made some prison armor with those books, taped up.
She did.
Yeah, which
Yeah, I thought she was stabbed, and I was like, "Oh man, come
right.
on, don't do that to us."
But
Come
yeah,
on. I very rarely want to see somebody survive a horror movie. I wanted to see Dina survive.
no, absolutely. And again, I'm sure we've mentioned before. I know we've mentioned before, especially when it was a bit rare, even in like the Friday the 13th and the Nightmare films, when a horror movie makes you care about the lead. That is a testament to the quality of writing. That isn't
That's
always
right.
given. Even as much as we love this genre, obviously we got this whole show about it. But it's not that common. Even in some of the better written ones, you almost don't care. You're rooting for the killers. You're often and even like I said, even in like like say a Candyman movie, I can't tell you that lead actress's name. I didn't care. I wouldn't have cared. You know what I mean? If anything
I
happened to her.
can't tell you. Yeah, I can't tell you who survived that
Yeah,
movie at
it's
this
all about
point. So
Candyman.
that's right.
But that's a tale for another time. But
That's right.
so yeah, I think we're both in agreement that y'all should check out all three of these films.
Yeah, you definitely should, and then you should tell us how right we are about our opinions on it. So, Sean, I
Yeah.
guess it's that time. What is your horror moment of the movie?
Yeah, so I mean there was some good violence, don't get it wrong, but I think there was something about and it was Dina. Again, for some reason I'm going blank. I didn't write down who what that Dina got into the church first when it was locked, and just
Yes.
walking through the pews and everything, and just seeing all the eyes gouged out.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
like, oh, that was so well shot. In a like you knew something was fucked up, but you just didn't know exactly what this dude was. And then and then seeing the priest up on the pulpit with his out too, and then he's alive. Like that was
Yeah.
it was my standout moment, I think, for this. As far as like, oh, that's I mean, it was all good, but that one, yeah, that jumps immediately into my head when I think about part three.
Yeah, I agree. The church scene when Pastor Miller is he got the kids in there. I thought he
Yeah.
was actually gonna light it on fire, is what I thought was going
Oh,
on.
right, right.
And then Solomon and Sarah bust in, and Solomon ends up killing him with a pitchfork made of wood, which was interesting. I mean, the timing, of course, makes sense, but still,
Yeah.
uh, kills him with the pitchfork because he can't talk the pastor down from being insane because, of course, he's possessed. But seeing the children and the reveal, I mean, you see some. What you believe to be entrails on the floor at first.
Oh,
Just a
right, right,
pile, and it turns out it's all their eyeballs.
right. And
Very well done, creepy moment. Uh,
Yeah, and
Go
the
ahead.
sorry, I was just, somebody didn't, and just again this actress, Dina's actress, which I keep calling Dina actress because I'm horrible with names, but
Yeah, it's
yeah,
Kiana Madeira.
yeah, her when she finds her brother in the front,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was just emotional. That was great. That was just so well done, and already in a horrible moment, and it just upped it so much more. So yeah, that's definitely my moment of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe a good runner-up is the scenes in the tunnels where Solomon's chasing her.
Oh yeah, the return to the poop chamber. I wrote it down in my
Yeah,
notes. That damn, it all comes back to poop. All back to that poop
yeah.
chamber.
So yeah, just in case I wasn't clear, this is the tunnel system that they found in the second movie
Yeah,
that was underneath the camp. So just in case it wasn't clear to anyone
right.
listening,
Which
uh,
that would definitely be a good runner up because that was a tense chase
yeah.
throughout that. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And then the whole thing that she'd cut her own hand off and all of
Right.
that was all a lie because it was him. So,
Yeah.
good runner up. So, um, all right. Well, I guess all that's left then is just rating the movie. How did you rate it?
Uh, Satisfying end, even with an open ending, which I don't always like. But with this one, again, it painted such an interesting world that the open ending, or at least the tease to more.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved. I was so happy to see that just for the potential. Yeah, I give it a 4.5.
I gave it a 4.5 as well for
Yeah,
all of those same reasons. It had the suspense of the throwback. It had a good finale. It was very satisfying. There was still plenty of deaths. Now, granted, once again, this is not a slasher type movie. It's
right,
not that kind of horror. It's plenty of horror in that movie, but
right.
it's not that kind of suspense horror. That it's more of a slow build type horror. But
Yeah,
it's there. It's good, and it's a very well done final piece to this series,
yeah, absolutely.
which I believe makes this our highest rated one in the series.
Uh, well,
I didn't
mutual.
keep
Yeah,
score on
yeah.
this. Yeah.
I think
Um,
part one you gave 4 and I gave 4.5, and then I think we reversed
right.
it on two, if I remember right. I'm not
Yeah.
certain.
I think we have it 3, 1, 2 was our
Right.
orders.
Yep.
So I didn't keep track of them like I did for the bigger series, but all three of them can be watched independently or separately. I recommend watching all three. You won't be disappointed.
Yeah, give yourself a good horror movie weekend,
Yeah.
even before October, because uh, something I posted this in response. I'm gonna take credit for it. It might even become a shirt. I don't know. Like Halloween is a state of mind.
There
Like
you go.
we're
It
not
absolutely
we're
is.
not limited to a day. So enjoy your horror year round, like we do, and check this out. And yeah, thank you for checking us out. And stay tuned because we know we said we were gonna do it before we started this, but this came out of nowhere for us. So
Right.
stay tuned and look forward to some nice little one-off movie reviews we're gonna be doing here very soon.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll catch y'all later.